Ina mana, ina reo, e rau, rangatira mā. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Nau mai haere mai ki te kōrero o tēnei wā. Ko waio, ka māhuhu ki te rangi te waka. Ko Ngāti Whātua te iwi, ko Stephen Scott Takaringoa. Kia ora everybody, welcome to this talk. And my name is Stephen Scott. I currently head the Office of Student Success, which you may not have heard of because it's quite new in the University of Otago. Its role is to look at how the university works overall and to think about ways we can make it better for students. And so Tim invited me because I do a series of workshops around the transition to first year, and I talk with Year 12 and Year 13 students about the transition from school to university. I also give the academic orientation talks next week, which is really, really scary because they're all here next week. And so he invited me to give this presentation. So I'd like to just point out some of my foibles. I've taught zoology for 20 years before this role, so I have a science kind of background. So bear with me if I give you science examples. I've learned NCEA watching my kids go through NCEA and then having to understand NCEA because the first years come in with NCEA. I'm very open for suggestions. The time is challenging. I normally do a 2 or 3 hour workshop. So if you see things that you want to ask questions about, just put your hand up. I'm very happy to take questions. One of the things that we really know about the transition to university is it's massive, and it's not just academic. There's a large social component, okay? Meeting new friends, new lifestyle, but there's also what we call an administrative component, whereby students become responsible for their bank accounts, getting out of bed in the morning, general maintenance of living, okay? Yes, Lee. And so I do a workshop later in the year about developing first year curriculum, and this is one facet, okay, and it's the transition, assisting students to transition from their previous educational area to the university's environment. And these are some of the questions I address. So who are our first years? What are the first year's educational system? And so this is basically today's talk. The other ones we won't worry about. So who are our first years? This is based on last year's data. We have about 3,700 first year students. 23% of them choose to live locally. So they live at home, they go flatting or boarding in their first year. This is a science-heavy university, Arahamai. 63% of our first years are doing science. About 60% are female, very female-heavy. 77% stay in residential colleges, 83% are straight from school. So the transition is huge because this is their first adventure. Yeah? 85% are admitted via NCEA and 90% are under 20 years of age, and most of them are 18. This is a very New Zealand-based university. 95% of our students are domestic. So, because I can't get away from doing workshopy things, turn to the person beside you. We don't have to know anything about NCEA. What are some of the challenges our incoming cohort might have? And you will know everything. That's not fair. All good?
Huh?
All good?
She wants to know what do you do in between lectures. How do you work out what to do?
Drink coffee.
You know, that's what Frank showed it.
Okay. I'm happy to take suggestions from the audience. What might just be some challenges for our students?
You've got nearly 75% who are coming to a new city.
Yes, so 75% of our students are coming to a new place, so there is a transition to place. Anyone else? Time management, okay. They're probably away from home for the first time, and potentially their parents were very supportive in getting them places and doing things. Anything else? What do you know about... Oh.
If they're doing arts, then they're up against that science majority.
Yes, yeah. And for some weird reason, there is the perception that arts degrees aren't as valuable, which is, as we know, wrong. Who here has teenage children? Okay. At 18, do you think their behaviour is always what you expect?
Oh, yes.
Oh. Can I talk to you later and figure out how you did that? So these are young adults, and so their behaviours may not necessarily fit what's happening, and they're away from home for the first time. It's a massive transition. So I'm going to have a very formulaic presentation about some of the behaviours we might see. So the next set of questions I ask, okay, who here did NCEA? We have one in the audience, one expert. Who here has kids who did NCEA? Who understands NCEA? Yes, I knew you were an expert. Okay, so one of our big challenges is how do we support that transition if we don't understand where they've come from? So NCEA is not the New Zealand curriculum at high school. The New Zealand curriculum at high school is actually really good. NCEA is the test of the knowledge of the New Zealand curriculum. Do we know anything about students being driven by assessment? Okay, assessment has been driving the New Zealand curriculum at high school, and NCEA is that driver. The other thing to be really aware of is that the students generally had no choice about what they were given at school, whether it was IB, baccalaureate, or NCEA. So it's not their fault, some of the behaviours and some of the consequences I'll talk about. So one of the things we have to be really aware of is they may come in with certain behaviours, but it's actually not their fault. And some of our responsibility is to smooth the transition between a system they have spent 3 years learning how to game to a university system. Okay, and so that gulf is that transition that hopefully we can give you some pointers. But you guys may already know a lot of these things just because you work with students. NCEA gets students university entrance. I'm not going to go into it very much. You can look at it on the website. But basically, you need 14 credits and 3 approved subjects plus a few more credits to make up to 60. Yeah? And that gives you a ticket to ride the university train. It doesn't say anything about what you're good at or what you can take. It's a ticket to get in the door. Yeah? So what I'm going to do is go through a table that I've been using for a few years now, looking at the differences between school, NCEA, and university. So one of the things we have to recognise is only 30% of high school students get to university. We get very clever students. They've got through the compulsory sector. Okay? So that's really good. Kia ora. One of the things when I talk about students, they are so looking forward to being independent. Okay? At school, they're living at home or boarding. There's a lot of parental input. At university, even if they're living in a college, flatting, or living at home, there's less parental input. So they are far more independent in what they're doing. What are the potential effects of attending Otago? Well, it's a massive transition, especially for those who've never gone away from home. there's a very large social component. Okay, so we are here thinking about we're going to fill their heads with classics or English or linguistics, anything, and they might be thinking about what party they might go to or who they're going to hook up with afterwards. So it might not be focused on exactly what you think they're focused on. And the administrative component is really large. So this is an overarching some suggestions, and I've put it as some suggestions because this is really, it's up to you. What works for your course, what works for your students. Your students are a little bit more diverse than the science students who tend to be straight from school. You have a few more mature students, so be aware of them. But for our students from NCEA, be very explicit about what you expect. Deliver those expectations in multiple ways, because if you grab the booklet, which I imagine, I'm probably getting old, but normally we give them a handout with everything in and we give it to them and go, okay, you know everything now. And they throw it in the corner and they lose it under a pile of clothes. So multiple ways of delivering your expectations. Scaffold the development of university level skills and knowledge and attitudes, because they're bringing something they've worked really hard at school to be good at, and now they're here. And give them opportunities for social interactions that are related to study. Okay, there is 3,700 first year students. There is enough people they will meet somebody, but it doesn't always happen to be an academic social engagement. It could be something else. Okay, if anyone wants to yell out anything else, please feel free.
What would be an example of a social interaction?
What did we just do at the start of the lecture? I got you to turn to the person beside you. You could add another level. Introduce yourself to the person beside you. Say who you are, where you've come from, what's your favourite animal. This is a zoology class now. What's your favourite animal? Okay, now discuss blah, 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 you know, and so you've just made a connection. People sitting by themselves, you can please sit next to someone. And so you've facilitated the social interaction, however little, but they've talked to the human next door to them. On the New Zealand qualifications framework, the last year at school is level 3. The first year at university is level 5. It is 2 steps up. It should be harder. Not everyone gets to university. It should be a challenge. Yeah? And as I said, university entrance is a ticket to ride. So in health sciences first year, we see many students who have not done physics. Physics is very important to pass with some less tension health sci first year. If you're doing accounting, they don't have to have done accounting. In some of your subjects, they may never have done classics. It's quite challenging because they're here and they're allowed to be here. So, because it's 2 steps up, some students may struggle with the content or the academic skills you expect. Some students have no background in what you're teaching, and that can be quite challenging. So what I'd ask you to do, and this is actually harder than it sounds, what do you expect from the student? And be explicit about it. So one of the things you're going to hear so many times is, tell the students exactly what you want. So before your students arrive, you will have a series of expectations. And I did a workshop, and Tony Zahara, who's an award-winning lecturer and teacher, he said, I have no expectations of students. You expect them to write their name, you expect them to be able to write a sentence, you expect them to be able to do some small math, you expect them to turn up to lectures, you expect a whole lot of stuff. So be quite clear, you do have expectations. Where you can, scaffold their learning, and for me, I think the skills are the key. So if you can build up a set of skills in these students, by 3rd year, they're not struggling with how to do it, they're focusing on what they need to achieve. And support students to consider their why. Why are they here? What are they doing? What do they want? And if need, to seek advice. These are primarily 18-year-olds straight from school, and from what, August, September, you've signed up, you've told everybody, I'm going to be a linguistic. you know, or I'm going to be a classics major, or I'm going to be a doctor, and they've told everyone over Christmas, the whole family knows, your church may be praying for you to be the doctor, okay? There is just a small amount of pressure, and they get here and goes, yeah, that sucks. Oh, it's recording. Give them the opportunities and the permission to think about why they're here. Yeah?
Could you just say a little bit about how arts type subjects are taught at NCEA? Like, are they taught in a way that's kind of just trying to communicate content, or what type of critical thinking skills or kind of reading and analysis skills are taught, just so that we kind of understand what they're bringing with them?
Yeah. So how is arts taught at school? I'm not the person to ask. You should ask this person here who's just come from school. The challenge we have is that every school does it differently. You might have some schools who are very, very good at critical thinking. History subjects tend to be better in terms of thinking, interpreting, referencing. English subjects may be rote learning essays so that you've got the right essay for the exam. My daughter would crack me up. She'd go, I've written an excellence essay, Dad. How do you know that? Well, because I've done this, this, and this, and I've rote learned it for the exam. Okay. And she would get an A, or, well, an E. Yeah. So when you do really good at school, you get an E, and when you do really badly at university, you get an E. The challenge we have is that every school does it differently. So I was speaking with Ian McGilchrist, who's now the scholarships person. He taught English at John McGlashan, and he said for one of the standards he taught, he used the model of Shakespeare for the text. He knew a colleague in a different school who used Kung Fu Panda for the same assessment. Okay? It's very different. And so this is, you'll see a few more points later on. We don't know what they've got. Yeah? The other really interesting thing with NCEA, subjects are built from a number of separate units. So this is the test. And there is many, many units. At university, when we design our paper, we think, what do we want them to know? How are we going to lay it out? And we try and put a cohesive kind of unit together. So that's one subject. At school, they teach the curriculum and then they test in multiple bits. Now, this is an example, and the computer ate my homework, so hopefully it works. English, there are 39 credits available at level 3 across 10 tests in written, verbal, and oral. Okay, sorry, biology, there is 34 credits available across 9 standards. So, if you look at this, a student can take, or the school will set, some of these 9 or 10 standards. But remember, to get NCEA, you only need 14 credits in that subject, and they're offering 34 and 39. So if I carry on with the example of biology, the school and student worked together, hopefully, and chose the subjects in green. So 27 out of the 34 credits were signed up for. At the end, the student chose to do one exam. Okay, so responses of plants and animals to external environment worth 5 credits. They didn't like evolution. They only need one of the 3 exams to get 19 credits, got 15 credits with excellence, so they have biology endorsed with excellence. This selection has no evolution and no genetics. For my field, those are the foundational bits of information. This student will come in with excellence in biology. You know, that's for me is scary because this is my discipline. For you, you may find similar things. So, this is the real biggie for us, I think. Students may have very fragmented knowledge and skills. Some of our students come from rural schools, and the physics teacher is the PE teacher. The chemistry teacher is the PE teacher. The PE teacher gets to teach heaps. Okay? So they may not be giving things they don't understand. So they may not be covering the curriculum. Like I said, I'd like you to reflect on the knowledge and skills you expect students to arrive with, and be really brutally honest with yourself. A student who arrives with these skills should get an A in my paper. A student who arrives with these set of skills will fail my paper. Are there any threshold concepts? Concepts that they really need to know before they can move through your paper. And critical thinking might be one of them if that's what you're trying to achieve in your paper. If they have no concept of what you're talking about, that makes it hard. And one of the things you can do is give a low weight or just a formative test of prior knowledge. Did they take classics? What did they study in classics? Did they take chemistry? What parts of chemistry did they learn? Did they understand anything that they think they learned? Designing a test of prior knowledge can be challenging, but it's you reflecting on what you expect. And then you know your class, for example, accounting, a third of my class got excellence in accounting, a third got achieved, and a third have never done it. So you might find that in your class. It's huge variation.
Stephen,
Yes?
your student who didn't get assessed in evolution and genetics would have been taught it?
May have been taught it.
There's no guarantee.
There's no guarantee. Yes?
How did the tests or the credits match up with what's actually happening in the classroom?
It's really problematic, and there's some literature from NCEA around validity. So there's internally assessed credits can have a bit of a challenge around validity. When you read, you can actually go online and look at any standard you want to look at, and you can read what the expectation is in that standard, so it should align with what's been done in the classroom. What they actually study is different. Could be Kung Fu Pounder, could be Shakespeare, but the thing would be analyse a text or analyse a visual text. So it's really hard to know. Sorry. Yeah. The other thing about NCEA, it's a standards-based system. If you reach the minimum standard, you have achieved. If you don't reach that minimum standard, you have not yet achieved. So when you write F on someone's work, it might be a real shock. If you reach the minimum standard, you get all of the credits available. If you work a bit harder, you get that kind of standard acknowledging merit. If you work really hard, you get that standard acknowledging excellence. Yeah? You don't get any more credits. One of the things that we've noticed, and I have a boy and a girl who won't like that now because they're 21 and 23, is that my son very quickly figured out he could get all the credits for almost no work, and my daughter would work really hard and get the same number of credits. And so boys are struggling to get endorsed with merit and excellent because they have different strategies.
So at level 3 NCEA, you can get achieved,
Yep.
and that will get you a university ticket.
Yes.
So there's no way that we can tell whether we're getting E students or A students.
Not easily. There is an entrance criteria or an entrance measure where you get 4 points for an excellence, 3 for a merit, and 2 for an achieved, and your best 80 credits are counted. So Auckland uses that extensively for gatekeeping their courses, and we don't.
We don't.
Yeah.
Does it matter if they gain credits through internals or externals?
Yes. And that's my last slide. Can I go there? Yeah?
How does the university then determine who receives the scholarship or not?
We have access to the rank scores when we allocate scholarships. The university has access to the NCEA data for purposes of admission and scholarships, but not for other purposes. The Ministry of Education gets very, very grumpy if we use it for stuff we're not meant to.
So is it fair to say that every student who achieved an E
Yeah.
will get a scholarship? Is that sort of roughly?
There are about a third or more of our first year students get a scholarship. We have academic excellence. We get 100 to 120 excellence credits in level 3. They'll get $40,000.
Say that again?
They'll get $40,000.
For what?
100 to 120 excellence credits. It will change every year, but if you only need 60 credits to get UE, getting 120 excellent credits means you've worked very, very hard. And that triggers another point. Students who get 120 excellence credits are excellent students. They will not struggle very hard at university unless they get unwell because they push too hard. Yeah? Students who come in with achieved, the data shows they're variable. They can be really, really good because it just works for them, or they can just fail abysmally. We don't know. There's not a good relationship between those who come in less academically prepared.
Don't we put quite a bit of weight on NCEA level 2 because the results are earlier?
That's for the scholarships, but we look at some of the data around level 3 for... We have to get NCEA level 3 to get in, so we can apply, give you a scholarship, and if it goes all pear-shaped, you don't get into university, you don't get it. So level 2 is where we judge our scholarships on, but you still have to get level 3 to get in. So anyone in the audience who knows anyone, level 2 is where you get your students to work their hardest. Yeah? Because that's the scholarship year. Whereas at university, we hopefully mark the full range. It was rubbish, you get 20. It was awesome, you get 99. Yeah? What happens is students don't hand in work because they don't think it's up to the standard. Because it's not up to the standard, you get nothing. Yeah? And so if they think it's not up to standard and they don't know our standard, they don't know what we expect from them, they won't hand it in because it's not good enough, and they get a 0. Okay? So that's really detrimental. And you may see students who just don't hand stuff in because it's not good enough. The other one is that if you get to the appropriate level, you get all 5 credits. So if I did a standard which had 5 credits over here and another one 5 credits, I have 10 credits. At university, we go, okay, you did this assignment, it's worth 35 marks, you got a 72, and you did this assignment worth 15 marks and you got a 44. What's your grade? How many marks do you have? I don't know. They don't know how to calculate their internal marks because they've never had to do that, and proportional reasoning has been identified as a real challenge for many of our students. Mate. So when you walk into the exam and you say, what are you walking into the exam with? No idea. I think I've passed so far. Yeah? They underestimate the power of a 0 in your average. It really hurts. So be as explicit as you can. Hand something in. I don't care if it's a piece of rubbish. I will give it a rubbish mark. Hand it in. Discuss the system of marking you use in your course, because E is not excellence. Yeah? And support students to know how they're going. So in Blackboard, you can actually do a column which is cumulative internal mark. So they can do that. Maths and Stats gives them a formula in their book, which is harder than I actually know how to calculate. Yeah. The other thing is that these assessments, the unit structures, are very, very standardised. Whereas we have an awesome opportunity. If we think an oral presentation, some multi-choice, a group work is the best way to learn our subject, we can do that. Yeah? And we can figure out what we think works for our subject area. So we are very, very, very variable. Here's an example of the student who skipped their evolution paper, and this is an external, which is an exam, an external. So I've highlighted some bits. With 4 credits in external, on the exam paper it says what you have to do to get achieved with merit and with excellence. Demonstrate comprehensive understanding of evolutionary processes leading to speciation. Excellent. That's what the exam's going to test. But there's more. It actually says what is in-depth understanding. This is what you have to demonstrate. Linking biological ideas or evidence. What are biological ideas? Here's a list of biological ideas. This is in the exam. And what is evidence? Here is a list of evidence. So this is in the exam. Yeah? So you've got the question, and you know all the bits that you need to answer in the question, and now you have to put it together. But there's more. You can look at last year's question. This is the model, this is the marking scheme. This is what you need to get the credits, okay? This is what they're looking for. And if you want excellent, that's what you need to look at. And there's more. This is the last year's assessment with a model of students' work and their mark. This is all available online for every credit. And good students farm this. Is that true? Farm this to make sure they're well prepared for assessment. Poor students do nothing and they fail, but good students are farming this. Yeah? They have a lot of evidence about how to achieve. So my daughter saying, I have written an excellence essay, she got excellence. She knew the criteria. So students are used to clear criteria around assessment, and there have been exemplars available, so they may struggle without these resources. They're used to this kind of korowai around them. And students have learnt to meet the standard they want. If they want to achieve, they know how to pitch it. If they want it excellent, they know kind of how to pitch it. They spent 3 years playing the system. They don't know what university expectations are, and every course is slightly different. So we need to give them something to adjust their internal standard. Okay? So just suggestions. Strive for consistency in whatever you do. Your outlines, your blackboard, your course books, the rules in the department, whatever you can do to be as consistent as possible, because every time they do a new subject, they've got to learn a new set of rules. Yeah? Discuss with your students how assessment works in your course. Be explicit about what you're testing, why you're testing, and how you're going to test it. What are the mechanics? Make the assessment requirements and questions as clear and as specific as possible. Okay? They struggle if you go, I'd like you to write an essay about fish physiology, some aspect, whatever, and its interaction with the environment. I didn't define environment, I didn't define fish physiology, I didn't define anything, I didn't give them any specifics. If I gave them it as a first essay, they would look at me in horror. And the good ones would figure it out. The middle ones and the ones who struggled will just write who knows. Okay? So, and the other one is if you can, get a marking rubric and give it to the students so they have a good idea about what an A or excellence is, what a fail or did not yet achieved. Okay? Do give examples. One of the things I talked to somebody and they said students harvest the examples to know what to write. So they don't actually have to learn some subjects. They can harvest the appropriate sentences and put them together somehow. So you can give them example, but give them it on a topic they're never going to be taught by you. So if you're going to do a lab report, science here, I'd give them a lab report example about, I don't know, an experimental design on eel reproduction, and I'm going to talk about environmental temperature effects. So it won't impinge upon what I want them to learn, but the structure's very clear. Give them feedback in multiple ways and include examples of good student work. Okay? The other one I didn't write down is be mean to them. Get them to come and get the feedback. At the end of every year, we throw away piles of very hard work we've put in to give them feedback. Think of a mechanism whereby you say, your mark's released when you see me for 3 minutes. Whatever you think you can do, because they've gotten the habit of, I get the mark, that's it, I'm done, gone. So the learning opportunity's lost, and you'd like to train them to make the most of all your effort as you help them to transition. Right. Yes?
So I get how it will be of assistance to students to have a clear and detailed marking rubric. When marking involves a considerable amount of judgment, what can we do to help our students if it isn't going to be possible to give them anything remotely like the kind of rubric that they're used to?
I'm sure that you can say a quality piece of work demonstrates this, this, and this. Because even I developed a marking rubric for zoology before I left there. You talk to people and say, well, what are you looking for in the essay, or what are you looking for in the assignment? What makes it good? And you try and crystallise down that a little bit. You can give yourself wriggle room in terms of, you don't have to say, you must say the is there, but what are the key things that you look at when you're trying to give a student a mark? And the challenge is for you to be a consistent marker. You've got something in your head that you are marking to. It's getting that onto the paper. So it might have a conversation with your colleagues. What makes a good assessment in your area? Okay, what are you looking for? The mechanics are simple. They referenced it was the right style. The discussion in a lab report is more challenging. They referred to the data. They were consistent. There were no inconsistent, so you can, but it is not an easy thing to do. You can go on the web and type rubrics, and there'll be a whole range of them there, which will give you a little bit of a clue. Yeah?
So what advice can we give students when it's not possible? Like, let's say if you're working towards developing a rubric,
Yep.
but you're not there yet in terms of there's a consensus among colleagues that everybody's happy to put this in front of students.
Yep.
Are there any intermediate steps we can do to make them more comfortable to operate in that environment where they don't have something that's quite what they're used to?
So if you have copies of student work from the previous year and the assignment is different, you can supply that and say, here's an example of a student who failed. Here's an example of a student who got an A+. Okay? This is so you can reset your internal standard. The word I keep using is explicit. Be explicit as possible. In this course, we're looking for these attributes. Here's an example from last year. You're not going to see this assignment, but you can read it and figure out what the student did to get an A and what they did not to get an A. So you can give them a little bit of intermediate stuff. In your assessment, you can write, we are looking for considered thought around this area with two sides of an argument presented. So you can give them a little bit of a hint, not a hint, be explicit. What do you want to see? So when you pick up your assessment and you start reading, you go, they missed it, they missed it, they missed it. Why did they miss it? Did we miss out an instruction? The thing is, you're trying to train them from being a high school student to a university student, and we're talking about scaffolding them into our system. By the time they're fourth year, you probably don't need to do a lot of this stuff. But actually, it still might help at fourth year. The other really interesting thing for me in the university is that at school the dates are flexible, and this is from the website. Students should not be assessed for a standard until the teacher is confident that achievement of that standard is within their reach, or until there is a deadline, which there may not be. So the teachers should not assess the students until the students are ready. This is awesome if you've got 40 weeks. We have 13 teaching weeks. We have a timetable. We are constrained. So again, my daughter would get really annoyed. I've written the essay and they've given everyone another week. Okay? You know, Erin. So we don't have that luxury. Our dates are very fixed. So what does that mean? Time management, someone said it, time management is really poor for some of our students because their system, it wasn't critical. And students underestimate the effect of not handing work in late. Who here has late penalties? Yep. I did a seminar yesterday and the lady from physics said, don't be nice. If they don't hand it on time, they get nothing. It worked better. Everyone's handing in their work. Okay. Yeah. Who's doing physics here? Discuss time management in your course. When I talk about time management, I show them my phone and everything is on my calendar. That might be novel for them. Discuss the time required for an assessment and the strategies to work through an assessment. I did a student questionnaire many, many years ago on the essay I set in zoology, and on average, the students spent 14 hours on their essay. And I was really pleased. I didn't realise they worked so hard. And then I relay that to the students. And then I describe to the students, actually, I only mark what you hand in. I don't care if you spent 60 hours on research and you spent 1 hour writing it up and gave me a piece of rubbish, I give you a rubbish mark. I mark what you hand in. So for me in zoology, I'd say you do a third of your time, your 14 or 20 hours on research, a third on the draft, and a third on the polish, because it's the polish I mark. I don't mark your research. You know, I mark what you write. That's novel for many of them because at school they may have been led through a process. If you want to be really nice to them, you could do that. You could break your essay up into a process. Hand in your reference list, hand in a bibliography, hand in your abstract, hand in something. Okay, so you could structure it as a scaffold exercise so that you get a little bit of time management instilled. You may even want to give them milestones. Okay, by week 3, you should have done this. By week 5, you should have done this, especially for big assignments. I personally really like, you start out with a little assignment, it gets a bit bigger, and it gets a bit bigger, and then you have a massive exam. Yeah. You guys might have different assessment techniques. And give them an example of what happens if they're late. So if you say it's 10% per day, do you mean 10 marks per day or 10% of what they handed in? And you say, okay, this person handed in something, it got a 55, they were 5 days late, they got 5. You know, that will highlight the effect of being late. This is a goodie. Submitted work can be redone. Yeah? And I even looked this one up. All students, this is on the website, all students must be able to use further opportunities to improve their original grade. Okay? As far as I'm aware in any of the work I've done, when you submit work at university, that's it. Yeah? Does anyone here manage resubmit or? Yeah, that's great.
No, but we often get asked.
Oh, okay.
Can we resubmit?
Yeah, yeah. There are 2 forms of resubmit, 2 forms of reassessing. There's a resubmit. So if a student is nearly there, the teacher can go up and go, Sid, it's almost there. See that bit there? There's something not quite right. Okay? I'm not allowed to tell you exactly, but teachers are not allowed to say exactly what you need to do to get over the hurdle of achieved merit and excellence. But they might point at something. Something's not quite right there. I'm being very cynical, sorry. The other thing is if you completely bomb your assessment as a student, you can have another go at that same standard after some more teaching. Those options are up to the school and up to the teacher to some degree. However, every standard has the option of resubmit and reassess. That would be a nightmare for a school, so I don't know if they do that. Do they do that much?
They don't do full resubmits.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah, because if you do a full resubmit, every student in the class has the right to have a submit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a little bit of the finessing going on. The problem is that we have perverse drivers at school. Schools are league tabled. How many students in that school get excellence at level 3? How many get level 2? How many get UE? It's all league tabled. Metro Magazine in Auckland league tables every school in Auckland and they rank them by decile. And there is a huge correlation between school decile and the number of students who get NCEA level 3, UE, scholarship. Yep. You don't need a statistics package to see it. And they do it every year under the guise of supporting parents to make the right choice. Yeah. So, some students may not hand in their best work, which at school is a really good idea because you get good feedback. Yeah? And you can fix it up a bit. And they may not be as independent learners as we want. Okay? Because if your school is being league tabled and you're competing with the school next door, you want very good marks. So there is pressure, subtle or overt, to help your students get the best they can. Okay? We don't do that at university, do we? Be explicit, again, in multiple ways that a student needs to hand their best work in on time. There are no resubmits. There is no reassessment in general. Yeah? We want to see your best and hand something in. And then be really clear. If it's not going well, if life gets in the way, how do you get an extension? So you've got to counter it. I might make this. Survey, supervised time. At school, it depends on your school a lot, and I will again use my son as an example. Oh, I can use my daughter too because she told me this year. She bunked. She had unsupervised time, study time, which she would go to town. My son, I don't know why, but potentially because he wasn't a good boy, he was supervised in his unsupervised time. So he would have to sit in the biology class of someone else to do his English homework. Yeah. So there's a lot of supervision. There's a lot of hands-on at school. It's quite different. Now, if you look at university, we have a workload model, 12 hours per week per 18-point semester paper. If you do 3 papers per semester, you should do 36 hours a week for the average student to get the average grade. If you're doing health sciences first year, you should be doing 48 hours a week for the average student to get the average grade. And none of the health science students want an average grade. So you should be doing more than 50 hours a week, which is more than a full-time work, which is crazy. So humanities has a major advantage, okay? What does that do? Students don't know the expected workload at university, and they don't understand that being, oh, I've looked at my calendar and I have nothing on Friday. Excellent, the university wants me to have a long weekend. Yes. Okay? No. We want you to study, but we're going to tell you anything about studying. We're going to tell you this is your time to self-learn. Students have little idea what to do in self-directed study. I've spoken with many students who say, NCEA was so easy, I didn't study anything, I got excellences for everything I did. They were very talented students. And I come to university and, oh my God, I had to study. I didn't know what to do. It's really sad. I talked to a young man, his first year, failed everything because he said, I was drunk. Awesome, what are you going to do this year? I saw him again, failed everything again. He said, I worked so hard. I was in the library every day. I said, how were you studying? I was reading my notes repeatedly, again and again and again. Were you reconstructing them, doing mind maps, diagrams, rewriting them? No. He was 48s, 47s. A slight change in technique, he would have passed. He would have been here. He's gone. So we assume a lot that our students are here and they know what they're doing, but they may not. Our very high achieving students, they have obviously worked very hard and they've figured out how to do the game. So I would strongly suggest you discuss with students what could be done in their self-directed learning. It doesn't work to say, you will do 5 hours of reading, you will prepare for your lecture, okay? You want to discuss with them, welcome to university, there is a whole lot. So for the example I thought about classics, there was 11 contact hours. The other rest of the time up to 36 is self-directed. And in my lecture I go, right, what should you do with all this free time? And they go, blah, 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 and they go, study. Okay, what do you study? I don't know. Okay, so be really explicit. For my course, well, have a discussion and try and get them to pull it out, so it's their idea. But then say, actually, for me, what I see and what I expect is, if you do the reading for my course before the tutorial, we have such a better interaction. So I expect that. I also expect you to look at the lecture notes before you come and to look up all the words you've never, ever seen before. So when I speak, I'm not speaking German to you. I expect that this assignment will take 14 hours and that for you to get a good grade, you need to put these hours in. So be explicit, but give some opportunities for them to figure out what it is to study. Help is offered proactively. So for some students, at year 13, they're one of the 5 remaining students in their school. Everybody loves that they're still there. Everyone knows their name. In the bigger schools, you might be one of 200. It's still not very many. SELS is 2,200 students. Okay? We have 3,700 first years. At school, they know your name. They know you didn't turn up. They know you're feeling hoha. They know. At school, we want, at university, we want self-directed learning, self-directed help-seeking behaviour. Yeah? We want them to ask, which is like a massive gulf, because 3 months ago, the teacher was saying, oi, pull your socks up, and where's your homework? So, one of the things is students may feel anonymous and that they don't belong. And Tinto's work really highlighted a sense of belonging is really critical for your students. And students may not ask for help. They are 18 and 19. They're the best in their cohort. Why should they be asking for help when they get to university? Everyone knows they were clever. Yeah? So just because they don't ask for help, it doesn't mean they don't know it's there. There may be lots of reasons for a young person not to ask for help. So some suggestions. Introduce yourself. Kia ora, I'm Stephen. I whakapapa te Ngāti Whātua. I grew up in the North Island. Suddenly, some people in the audience might connect with us. Okay? That's really important for you to be a human being in their space. Give them the opportunities for social academic interactions. Okay, you're not going to the pub to drink with them, but you might have a discussion about something or talk about something. Okay? Notice your students and plan to act on a lack of engagement. So I talked with Jacques Vandermeer. He has tested a care agreement with his students. So in a first year education paper, and they have, it's explicit. If we notice you're not in class, we will ring you. If we notice that you haven't done your assignment, we will ring you. And the student gets to tick, okay, 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 and give a phone number. They can say no, bog off, because they're adults. But it's an agreement that we care. Again, you can give a low weight or formative piece of assessment early on just to see if someone answers it. Jacques again did a humanities pilot. Students who engaged at the early, low-level piece of assessment did significantly better in their final mark, okay, because they were engaged. You can look at Blackboard use, tutorial attendance, assignments handed in. And something we did at zoology, anyone who didn't hand an assignment, we sent them an email, and it was a friendly, supportive one. We noticed you haven't handed in. Are you okay? We had about a third of the students say, oh, I've been sick or something happened. A third go, no, I've been really slack. And a third never talked to us. But what happened during that year or during the semester is students started to emailing us and say, oh, we're going to be sick, or we're away, or I'm not well, you know? Which is different to going, oh, they just didn't hand it in and they're slack. It's like life started getting in the way and they started telling us. And the last one, exams are a bonus at school. Many of the students tell me, I have enough credits before the exams. I chose to do 1 or 2 for excellence, and the rest I didn't need. I hate exams. I don't have to sit them. Yes. At university, exams are utterly critical. Okay? Laws 100%. House size 70%. Most papers in science 60%. Humanities, you all do exams? Yep. If you don't have to, great. If you do, this is a skill they don't have. So, your students, oh, this is the fun one. In high school, the teachers don't set the exams. Okay? Some external nebulous body sets the exams, and the teachers have to guess what's on the exam. And in my academic orientation lecture, I said, hands up if your teacher got it wrong, guessing what's on the exam. About half the class puts their hands up. The teacher doesn't know what's on the exam, and they guess wrong, and the students suffer. So what I call is the circle of knowledge. Be really explicit. It's my paper. I teach what I want you to know. I set the assessment. I set the exam, and I mark the exam. So if you want to pass, come and listen to me. Be really, really explicit, because there's a history of mistrust between what I tell you during the internal part of the course and the external. Yeah? The other one is that students may not have good exam sitting or study skills. So I've gone over the first little bit, and I call it the circle of knowledge, and I tell 2,000 first years, and some of them hopefully remember. But the other thing you can do is run an exam session for your course and talk about the structure of exam, the timing of the exam, because they may not have those skills. At NCEA, there's no marks associated with a question, so they can't plan their time in the exam. Whereas here, you can say, all right, 35, it's 1.2 minutes per question if it's a 2-hour exam, I think. Don't quote me. So you can actually time everything in the exam. In NCEA, the first few questions are probably achieved questions. There's a couple of merit questions and some excellent ones at the end. Yeah? And so you kind of, it doesn't even tell you. You just kind of have to figure it as you go through. The other one for the exams is students at high school have 3 hours per subject to sit 3 exams. They get to choose if they sit 1 exam, 2 exams, or 3 exams in that 3-hour period. If all you need is 1 exam to get endorsed with excellence, you take 3 hours on 1 exam. As long as you write nothing in the other 2, it's did not attempt, and they are thrown away. At university, if you do not write an exam, it's a 0 and you fail. So those are major differences. So if you talk about assessment in your course, and maybe give them some pointers. So in zoology, the last lab would be, I would hook them in, I'd say, right, we're going to go all over the exam. And before I got there, I'd give them the course questionnaire, I'd do all sorts of stuff, business, and then at the end we'd go over the exam. And I would photocopy the exam, the real one, and I'd put it on, this is your exam. Okay, it has 7 pages. Count the pages, the photocopy breaks sometime. You have 2 hours, okay? Section 1, and I'd turn the page over. Section 1, the first essay is worth 30 marks, and I start reading out the essay topic, because I would give them the essay topic before the exam in my test. And they'd be going, is this a trick? No. Exams are not a trick. Are you going to change the question? No. Oh, no, I'll put it on Blackboard, it's all right. And then I'd go, okay, this is only worth 30% of your paper. If you only answer this question, you'll fail the test. Okay? And then I'd turn the next page. Here's the other essay questions. Oh, they're blank. How many lectures are in the course? 3. We're basically lazy. Okay? And every year we have to take a turn at taking the compulsory essay. There's going to be 3 short answer questions. How many lecturers in the class? 3. Guess what? 1 each. Yeah? It sounds pedestrian, but when you mark an essay question and it's not your subject they're talking about, it's quite disconcerting. It's your colleagues' material they're answering your question with. So getting their head in the game that we ask about what we taught is quite important. And then I'd talk about the timing in the exam, and then we'd have a discussion in the class. How do you study? And we'd talk about that. And then we'd talk about the timing of study. So we'd do quite a lot of work around how to get the best mark possible. And I think that is my time. Oh, guess what? By 2026, NCEA will be changed for universities for the better, but you've got 6 years. Okay? You can read that of your own. That is my time. If there's any questions, I'm very happy to take some. Yes?
So you held up a glossy booklet at the beginning and said they get this, but is there any point when incoming first years are told some of this information en masse? It seems kind of inefficient that each one of us has to say in every one of our classes that if you get a 0 on an assignment, that goes really bad in your average. Like that. Is there a point when they're told that, when they get it?
Our policies are really clear that we have to provide every relevant piece of information, the assessment, the weighting and everything, in something like a booklet or on Blackboard by week 1. Okay? And normally we work really hard and we do it and we go, we're done, yay. We walk away and we start teaching. The point I'm trying to make is that that's a massive amount of information and we might have to be inefficient, but remind them as they transition into this new environment. In second year, you probably don't need to do that at all, maybe even in the second semester. But when they're in their first semester, you might have to remind, guess what? In this course, there are no resubmits and whatever you hand in is the final. And if you don't hand anything in, you get 0. And I'll show you a calculation. 0 of 35% in this course will almost definitely fail you. So it's trying to be as explicit as possible. Go there.
Do the school's liaisons do any work in terms of the transition, or is their role really the marketing at the university?
They mark at the university and then they help with the student advising and trying to get students to think about their why and then help them to figure out where they will study and what they'll study in their first year. So less about the transition, but they will talk about it. Here.
Do you have any advice about how to market our programs to be attractive to incoming first-year students, especially like arts and humanities? So some students might not even know they could study certain arts subjects at university.
It is really challenging, but if you have a good relationship with the schools, okay, and you work with the schools, get the students to come and play at the university if they can. The hands-on science has changed to hands-on at Otago. We get 400 students with a conversion rate of over 40%. Okay, so have your department offer something in hands-on. You reach students from all over New Zealand. The challenge we've got is that the students have, I think, maximum 40 subjects at school, which very rapidly condenses down because it's the same type of structure as a degree. In the first semester of our course here, we have 111 first-year papers in the first semester. They don't cope well with the choice. So giving them some good ideas about what to take, where it will lead. I mean, I know that might be a dirty word, but students come to university, become employable. They may not have a job in mind, but they'd like their skills to be better. So, yeah.
One of the difficulties that we find is this idea of prerequisite for second and third year.
Yep.
That students have real difficulty navigating the pathway through the degree and say, oh, I get to second year, oh, but you haven't completed this paper,
Yep.
and so on. So
Yep.
how do we try, because there's nothing again on eVision to sort of guide them through
Yeah.
their degree. They just start randomly taking papers and then they get into all sorts of messes.
Yep. Yeah. Course advice is really, so Otago prides itself on having a flexible degree structure, which is a double-edged sword. So the paradigm of choice, the more choice you have, the less choice you make. The best thing is chat to your students early. In the first week, they completely can change everything in your degree. In the second week, with HOD approval. If you have someone in your class say, oh, excellent, welcome in. Why are you taking my class? What are you trying to achieve? And have a chat. What do you want to do in third year? Have you thought about some of these cool papers? It's not that you're trying to hook them into your course, no, but let them know that there is a pathway. And you can say, just like NCEA, you have to plan for your third year because it's very similar. If you don't plan for your third year at NCEA, you can't do level 3. So you can actually, yeah, so they know that structure, so you can actually refer that. Over there, yeah.
Thanks for this presentation. It's really helpful. And I just wonder, in thinking about, okay, the kinds of scaffolding and skill building that we can do in our classes, does your office have resources, or do they give talks, or maybe have slides that we can use for things like note-taking? And
so HEDC is really good. Okay, so they provide students with opportunities to develop those skills on a one-to-one basis, but also they provide professional development for staff. So have a look at HEDC's website and see what they've got, and if need be, ask them for something for your department. Yeah. So they're tasked with the professional development of the students and the university staff. I kind of am a little bit off to the side, and I had to learn this because my role is the transition of first years. And Tim asked me.
Hey, Stephen, thank you very much. Staff may need to go.
Yes, I realise that.
If you have questions, just you're around.
Yeah, I'm around.
To ask those, but thank you very, very much. That's super.
Thank you.